Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Thoughts of the Young Icon with me, Sam. Today, I continue my spirited cry from the last video to my fellow Malawians. It's time for us to rise. We must be like a phoenix and rise from the ashes. And I continue to then share about what we can do and what we must do in order to pick ourselves up. And there's more that I'm going to share in videos to come. But I hope as a Malawian, you watch this video and you take it seriously. Enjoy. So in today's video, I want to sort of pick up where I left off in the last video. In the last one, I was kind of talking about how, as a nation, Malawi to be specific, we found ourselves in a situation of lack in the midst of wealth, lack in the midst of plenty. You know, as a nation, we have so many resources, we have so many things that are going for us potentially, and yet we never realize that potential. There's so many things that can help us rise from the situation that we're in right now, this lackluster, this position of poverty. So many things, and yet no one is doing anything about it. Or let me not say no one is doing anything about it, but we're not doing enough. We're clearly not doing enough. The situation only seems to be getting worse. Now, I think it would be very unfair of me to just come here and criticize where we are and not seek to provide any solutions. It would be unfair of me to criticize and bring about my observations and yet not come up with something concrete or not share in the ideas on how we can fix the situation that we're in. And like I rightly said in my last video, I don't have all the answers. I do not. And I do not blame our leaders for where we find ourselves because, like I rightly pointed out, our leaders are from among us. And because they're from among us, they're going to act in the way the majority of the population is going to act. So that to me becomes the starting point. We need to get to a position where, as Malawians, our mindset has changed. As Malawians, despite the poverty, despite everything that seems to be going against us, we need to shift our mindset from thinking about today's meal only and thinking about tomorrow. To me, that's the starting point. We need to think about the future. We need to think about the world that we would want to live in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, the world in which we would want our children to live in. Because I know it's very easy, and I guess the term very easy is not the right term. I know it's more natural. There's a bigger inclination for us to think about what we should do today in order to eat when we're hungry right now. And that can take away from the possibility of thinking into the future. I understand that. And I'm not saying it's easy. But what I am saying is we need to start actively taking steps towards thinking about the distant future, planning for the distant future, and then having a united vision and a united way of executing that vision of the future that we envision. That's the starting point. We need to envision a future. We need to have thoughts. We need to know that the future is coming. We live as though we don't think the future is coming. You know, when someone is taking part in corruption, all they think about is the wealth that they're accumulating. All they think about is the fact that their pockets are going to be enriched. But they don't think about the fact that they may have rich pockets, but what they have done is to the detriment of the nation as a whole. Now, have you truly enriched yourself when you have done something that's going to impoverish the future you? Because that's what corruption is. You know, if you take something that was supposed to be used, or if you take money that was supposed to be used, let's say for medicine or for roadworks, what you're saying is, I'm going to eat this money in my house, and I'm going to sacrifice the roads that were going to be built, that were going to be repaired. What you're sacrificing unknowingly, or I don't know if you know, is the fact that someone could potentially have a road accident on those poor roads that you have resulted in because of the corruption, and that's going to be your fault. Someone could find themselves in a situation where they could have grown up to be a medical doctor, they could have grown up to be a great lawyer, they could have grown up to be a scientist, they could have grown up to be an engineer, but they die young because they didn't have access to medicine because of your corrupt practices. One of the things that I think sometimes really bothers me is the fact that in Malawi, people do not hold themselves accountable. It's one thing to hold yourself accountable to the people to whom you're accountable to, but worse still, people do not hold themselves accountable to themselves. Like, people do not self reflect, people do not think about the implications of their actions. They don't think about, because I come up to this conclusion because there's certain things which I simply don't understand. Like, how do you do something? How do you pocket money when you know that that money was meant to help the masses? Like, how does that make sense to you? How do you block development projects, or how do you come in the way of potential development because of your corrupt practices? That's just thinking about today. That's just thinking about yourself. But what about the other people who are going to miss out? What about the children? I think about the children a lot. I think lately my mindset has shifted from thinking about today into thinking about the future, because I'm a father now. I have kids, I have responsibilities, and I understand the fact that the world is changing, and the fact that if I don't do anything to better the world for my kids, then my kids are going to find a world which is worse than the world that I was born into, and the world that I was born into was not even great to begin with. Now, for me, I've decided that I, as an individual, I'm going to take initiative. I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to use the education that I have. I'm going to use the abilities, my strength, to empower others, but also to wake them up. I think sometimes the biggest thing that stops people from doing great things is that they're giants, but they're sleeping. Malawi has a lot of sleeping giants. When you think of just how big the population is and how the demographics show that a lot of the population is younger, it shows that Malawi has the potential for a bright future. But Malawi is not going to have a bright future if we, the ones who are older now, are only thinking about ourselves. I think the biggest mindset change that we should also incorporate into our lives is to just become a selfless nation. I think if there's an identity that we can change to, if there's something which I would love and hope to see, is a nation where people are selfless, people are thinking about their neighbors, people are thinking about tomorrow. We need to stop cutting down trees for charcoal for today without replanting and thinking about tomorrow. I'm a realist, and I understand that people need to cut trees for energy, for firewood, for charcoal. I 100% understand that, and I am not against it. What I am against is the fact that people are going to cut down trees and just not think about tomorrow and not replant. People are going to cut down trees which have been replanted while they're still in their infancy, before they've matured, because they're thinking about today and they're not thinking about tomorrow. Listen, I heard a saying that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the next best time to plant it is today. Now, obviously, this is in reference to a natural tree or a literal tree, but you also need to think like a wise person and think about it beyond the tree. Think of it as a metaphor. There's certain things which should have been done, which weren't done, but need to be done right now. And this is my cry to you, my countrymen, this is my cry to you. Let us unite in thinking about the future. When it comes to politics, when it comes to politicians, let us accept the fact that our politicians are not going to do the work for us. They are not going to enrich us. In fact, there's never been a country where the politicians have enriched the general populace. There has never been, and there will never be. The best we can hope from our politicians is for them to create an enabling environment in which excellency thrives, an enabling environment in which we are able to grow because they are not corrupt, they are not hindering progress, and they are not hindering excellence. However, it is utopian thinking to think that our politicians by themselves are going to be the ones who are going to take us from this place, this Egypt that we're in, into the promised land. They can try, but it is up to us. It is up to you, and it is up to me. It is up to us to carry our own weight. It is up to us to carry the weight of those who cannot carry their weight. It is up to us to stop having this attitude of if so and so is failing, it's their fault. No, if so and so is failing and you can do something about it, it's your fault. We need to take accountability, not just for ourselves, but for the people that we love. And we need to do this as a nation, not just as families, not just as tribes, not just as communities, but we need to come together and have a national unity. So that's my battle cry to you, and I hope you take this seriously. If you've watched this video this far, I'd like you to hit that like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to tell a friend about Thoughts of the Young Icon. Thank you very much.